concessions, Congressman. So first, I do want to get your reaction to Darren's report. But at this point, what tools does Congress have to help the housing crisis become basically front and center, but fix it? I ask that because I know that the Mortgage Insurance Freedom Act is something that you have reintroduced. This is the issue of PMI and getting that fee eliminated. This would really help first-time home buyers, young families.
Well, in fact, it does. The marketplace is full of rules, regulations, over regulations. And then, as you've already heard, the cities and counties do these same things. But the bottom line is Secretary Turner does have the opportunity to create a better marketplace, and some of them are directly related to the replacement of affordable housing. Generally speaking, for every house that is added, you have to take one away, and it means the supply never grows. Several years ago, we spent a large amount of time as large numbers of people moved to Texas trying to get the Secretary, then Secretary Fudge, to please lift the rules and regulations so that we would have more available houses. And it was a tough sell. It was a tough sell. And I think under Secretary Turner, it will be something that he will well understand being from Texas. But the rules and regulations that add to cost is a real problem, and we have to be considerate of normal Americans, husband and wife, who are trying to get into a home, just like my son who just got into a home. Took them 3 years to saving to get into a home, and of course then comes taxes and expenses and take care of your house.
Exactly.
So it is very important. Congress, under French Hill, our chairman, is making this a priority, and I'm glad Scott Turner is also.
I would think that you're going to have support for this. We'll have to follow, of course, and track that bill. There's a lot of business at hand right now for you and your colleagues as you've come back to work. But I do want to ask you about this on the political side of all this, because the Democrats are making affordability their main issue. They're using it to go after President Trump. I'm just looking at a new piece coming out in the Washington Post just a few moments ago. Democrats eye housing affordability as their next weapon against Trump. Center for American Progress wants new candidates for the midterms boost construction, send checks to renters, punish localities that don't reform. Your reaction to that, because this is going to be the story for next year.
Well, my reaction is quite simple. It's just like other things that happen in this town, and that is President Biden and House Democrats for 4 years had not only control of this marketplace and the Secretary's job, but they had an opportunity to reform these. And all they did is add cost and add taxes, and the government being involved, whether it be the Fed, who added $3.2 trillion worth of loans that are right there on the books for us to have a higher debt, but the way they operate. So Secretary Turner, President Trump, and French Hill, who is our chairman at Financial Services, we're all on the same page, and we need more availability. We need more housing. We need more apartments. We need more affordable housing that will be available. And the home builders and the realtors are together on this, so I think we'll make great progress.
I do see that sentiment within those industry groups, so I agree there as well. Speaking of affordability, Treasury Secretary Bessent telling Marie Bartiromo that real relief is coming soon. Listen to this.
I would expect in the first 2 quarters, we are going to see the inflation curve bend down and the real income curve substantially accelerate. And when those 2 lines cross, Americans are going to feel it. But Maria, I will tell you what we're not going to do. What we're not going to do is tell the American people that they don't know how they're feeling.
You know, he also floated, Congressman, the idea of a $2,000 rebate check from tariff revenue. Remember, the country has taken in about $195 billion in the first 3 quarters of this year in tariff revenue. Is that something that you agree with?
I do not, but just because I do not does not mean I would not listen to what the plan would be. But let's go to what the plan really is, and that is President Trump has been for a long period of time for reducing interest rates to match what is the market problems might be. And the market problems do not need to be a high interest rate. Risk is a factor that has been diminishing, and under President Biden, it was up to 7%. No wonder people could not build, could not get loans, could not get the house. We now want people, young families, to be able to have the ability to look long term for their economics, and that interest rate is the biggest driver, and cost, but the interest rate is the biggest driver on that.
Understood, and that's something we're going to be watching with the Federal Reserve next month, sir. Let me switch gears with you now and talk a little foreign policy, because Secretary Besson is expecting the U.S.-China agreement to be done by Thanksgiving. There's still reports out there this morning that China is slow-walking soybean purchases. They did this under the Biden administration. It looks like they're trying to do it again and pull the wool over President Trump's eyes. Your reaction?
Well, my reaction is that farmers, especially in the Midwest, know best about futures orders. They know about the orders that they plant and that they're going to have in the future. If those orders do not materialize, I do not expect President Trump to move forward with his plan. So, correspondingly, there are two sides to the equation. We've agreed to something, they do. I would expect the Chinese are going to need to live up to that.
Before you go, real quick, Agricultural Secretary Rollins announcing that all SNAP recipients are going to have to reapply for that program. They're looking for fraud. If you look at the number here, look at this. Stolen benefits cost the government more than $102 million in the first quarter of fiscal 2025, up from $32 million. This program seems to have a large amount of fraud. Maybe 1 in 5 people are not even alive, Congressman. We need to get to the bottom of this.
Well, there's no question about it. And Secretary Rollins has literally a policy background where she's looked at the numbers, she sees where the problem is, but we have to correspondingly ask people to re-sign up, re-ask the questions that will be directed directly to the people who need it most. As you may know, I have a Down syndrome son. I have a young man that needs the benefits of the United States. Able-bodied people should not be standing in a line. Now, a woman with children, a family with children, that they're in trouble, absolutely. But simply to live off the federal government and the food program is not something that this administration, nor I think really Congress, when we look at it, should be continuing. So I'm very proud of Brooke Rollins.
Congressman Sessions, it's wonderful to speak with you from the great state of Texas, sir. Thank you for being with me. Really appreciate it.
You betcha.